Hello everyone and welcome back to LewisFiction and to Spider-Man 5. We are back with the Retro Mondays. Now, I posted Spider-Man 4 a while ago, and I know I haven't posted on the channel for a little while, but I'm going to be bringing Retro Mondays back, and the regular Thursday, Sunday video uploads will be coming back as well. So everyone, make sure you stay tuned, make sure you stay subscribed, because we're going to be posting every single week, 3 times a week. Anyway, I'd like to welcome you to Retro Spider-Man 5 from a few years back when I made this fanfiction, and hopefully you all enjoy. We start our story with Peter at his lowest he has ever been in the entire series. MJ just died in the last one, and Peter is depressed. He doesn't know what to do with his life. In the last movie, he was too focused on being Spider-Man to try and prove himself, but in this movie, he isn't focused on being Spider-Man at all. It's a complete polar opposite. This movie changes perspective, really reflects the tonality of this movie right from the get-go. It is going to be a slow, dark, and depressing story, but at the same time, Peter's arc is set here. The only way for Peter to go is up in this movie. This is a redemption story. The symbolism and metaphors in the first couple of scenes will be filled to the brim with dark color gradients, like a dark blue to represent Peter's grieving, rain, dimming lights, and no dialogue whatsoever. The only ambient sound in these scenes will be the soothing, heart-wrenching musical score by Christopher Young. The sounds from the outside will be dimmed out and will sound like they're being ignored by Peter, as this movie is from his perspective, which could represent the concentration he has dwelling on his own thoughts. His own thoughts are the only thing he can concentrate on, and in those thoughts would be one person, MJ. A couple of scenes later, and we will have a scene at MJ's funeral. Peter is there with May and a couple of Peter's school friends. Flash shows up too. The previous Spider-Man movies have ended on funerals, and one has never opened on one before. However, I'm going to flip the tradition on its head. Instead of including this scene at the end of the last movie, I'm going to put it here. The reason for this is because whenever a Spider-Man movie has ended with a funeral, it's allowed the next movie to start a new leaf and a fresh page for a Spider-Man story. Yes, events from the previous movie have carried over to affect the next, but my version is going to be a more extreme variation of this. I'm starting the movie with a funeral, so there is nowhere for me to hide. I can't just turn a new leaf and tell another Spider-Man story. No, this will be a redemption story. We know these characters really well, and it's time to show a deeper understanding of them. We will be reintroduced to our now lead female, Felicia Hardy, at the funeral scene, and she will also be there to comfort Peter straight after. It's revealed that in between the two films, these two characters have become really good friends now, and their relatability of being superheroes have really given them a connection. However, they have become more personal friends with each other at this point as well. The problems are really exaggerated when Peter doesn't even have enough money to pay for her funeral costs. The costs are put on Peter as MJ has no one else in her life to support her. Her father left her in the first movie, and he didn't even show up to the funeral. So once again, a problem is put on Peter Parker to handle. Peter is trying to grind out pictures at the Daily Bugle to pay for the costs, but it isn't cutting it. This also cuts into his work as Spider-Man at this point as well. He is being Spider-Man for the money at the Bugle rather than being Spider-Man because it's a responsibility he carries. At this point, the city start to put more faith in Black Cat to do the hero work. Peter is already on edge with being behind on money for MJ's funeral and trying to be Spider-Man, all while trying to grieve at the same time. The city starts to trust the cat more than Spider-Man. And it's set here that trust is the main theme for this film. Felicia tells Peter to take a step back and let the Black Cat handle the city for a while. However, Peter is having none of it. Although he's slacking, Peter still understands his morality. He says to Felicia that his responsibility is to protect the city because of what Uncle Ben told him, and not just for the city, but for MJ. Felicia understands Peter, but points out to him that he might be saying this, but this isn't what his actions are reflecting. This puts them into a big fight as Peter snaps at her. Peter is in a really bad place, and his mental game isn't so strong right now. This then puts a rift between the two characters, once again highlighting that trust may be the theme going forward in this movie. Peter needs money, and the Bugle isn't paying enough, so Peter goes looking for a job that would potentially pay more than Jameson. And obviously we know that Peter and MJ moved into the same house in the last movie. In this movie, Peter's going to sell that house and then move back in with Mr. Dickovich, good old Mr. Dickovich, so he can just pay minimum rent and not have to pay for the house as well, so he gets more money to pay off the debt he owes. Dr. Connors offers Peter a job to come and work at the lab where he used to go to school in at Spider-Man 3. Peter accepts. On his first day, Connors reveals to Peter the backstory to how he lost his arm. This scene fleshing out Dr. Connors' character, giving him a backstory, and now his motivation is clear for this film. All he wants to do is grow his arm back so he can raise his son. In one of the flashbacks in Dr. Connors' backstory, there is going to be a scene where Kurt's wife picks up his son with both arms. When his son comes over to Kurt, he can't pick him up due to him not having both arms. It's the simplest of things, but delivered in the saddest way. We as an audience feel for Kurt because he can't raise his son properly like a normal father. He can't play some sports with him, etc., do fatherly activities. This also fleshes out Peter's and Kurt's relationship, as we already knew they knew each other in the previous movies, but this just homes in on what kind of relationship they have and where it is developing. It's developing more from a student-teacher kind of relationship to a more friendly and personal connection between the two characters. So Connors reveals to Peter that he has found a way to regrow his arm back. He just doesn't know how to finish it yet. A few more scenes go by and we have a scene where Peter and Felicia are trying to reconnect with each other and apologize. However, it doesn't go as planned. Peter tells Felicia about his new job with Dr. Connors, and Felicia tells Peter that her father, Adrian Toombs, used to work with Dr. Connors and didn't trust him, and said that he was insane. He looked normal from the outside, but Connors has a burning passion from inside to push everyone else aside just so he could regrow his arm, and that's how Adrian and Connors stopped working together, and thus why Adrian went solo and the Vulture was born. Felicia tells Peter to stop working for him. However, the distrust they already have slightly for each other affects this interaction, as Peter claims he needs a way to pay for MJ's funeral, all the while Felicia is just trying to protect Peter as a friend. This furthers the rift between these two characters. Felicia is really hellbent on trying to get Peter to understand here, but he's having none of it. At this point we get a bit of characterization for Felicia. As we know from the last movie, she didn't have any friends. The only person she had was her father, while now all she has is Peter. But she is slowly losing him to Peter's own downfall. All she's trying to do is help and do good, which she learned and was taught by Peter in the last film, so it's almost ironic. But she's also angry. She's angry that Peter won't let her help him. The only person Peter can really trust now apart from Aunt May is Dr. Connors. From Peter's perspective, everyone in this movie has tried to tell him no or tried to drag him down in some way so far. Now I'm going to take a page from the Amazing Spider-Man movie here. Peter will help Dr. Connors figure out the formula he needs to regrow his arm. They use lizard DNA, as a lizard has the ability to grow new limbs, and they think that if they combine it with the human DNA, they can recover Connors' arm. Dr. Connors uses the formula that Peter helps him with, and it works. Peter is happy for once. However, a couple of hours later and Dr. Connors starts to transform, and out of nowhere Dr. Connors has become a giant raging lizard. Peter sees this and as Spider-Man swings into action. Him and the lizard have a fight and the lizard comes out on top and escapes Spider-Man's grasp. Peter goes back to the labs to go and visit Dr. Connors to see the labs is in tatters. He checks the security footage and sees that Dr. Connors is the lizard. Peter, because of this, hits another low in this movie. He doesn't trust Felicia because of the disagreements. He doesn't trust the city because the city don't trust him. He doesn't trust Connors, but most importantly because of this, Peter has lost all trust in himself. The only person who knew that great power comes great responsibility now has no trust in himself. Because he made Connors the lizard, he helped make the formula for Connors, and now it's all his fault. Peter needs guidance, so goes to Aunt May. We have a scene where these two are talking and it's an emotional scene. Aunt May tells Peter the error of his ways and that dwelling on MJ's death is fueling the anger and distrust that he has on others around him. He also then realizes in the moment that Felicia was right about the way he had been going about being Spider-Man. It wasn't because of selflessness, it was because of selfishness. Peter exclaims his problems surrounding Connors and the lizard. May tells him that he still needs to save his friend. No matter how much he obsesses over the lizard business, he needs to help him and not hurt him. Peter does agree. May also tells Peter to apologize to Felicia and tells him that he is a good person. He was just blinded by his love for MJ. His grieving won't stop at all, but Peter has a perspective on the way to approach his situation now. The redemption of Peter Parker starts here. Peter goes and apologizes to Felicia through the phone, and Felicia says that she's out and she's with other friends, which is weird because Felicia never had any other friends. Felicia, after her falling out with Peter, decided to go out in the world and make friends, explore a little. After all, Peter was a toxic part of her life. She still loves Peter, but she just needs a break from him. Peter understands and has learned from their previous interactions and doesn't cause a fight this time. However, it's not all over yet. Peter still has to find the lizard. The lizard has been spotted in an area of New York City, and there is an epic scene where Spider-Man swings through the city to go and finally end all of this. It's just him, as it was from day one. Spider-Man, the real Spider-Man, is back. And the original theme by Danny Elfman, the epic score, kicks in. Spider-Man finds the lizard and tries to get through to him. They fight one another, punch, kick, punch, kick. The lizard has him pinned down though. He's beating Spider-Man, almost like he'd become stronger since their last encounter. A crowd of people start to surround the fight, and before the lizard could completely take Spider-Man's head off, the Black Cat arrives to help Spider-Man. The lizard escapes again, however, but Peter and Felicia have a heart-to-heart. Peter apologizes properly, and Felicia tells him that if she just ditched him for other people and started ignoring him, she wouldn't become any better than Peter herself. Thus, both characters have learned something up to this point in the movie, and it's time to get going. It's time to finally end all of this. With Felicia's detective skills, from which we learned in the last movie, in Spider-Man 4, she helps Peter track down where the lizard went to. Peter tells Felicia that the lizard seemed like he had grew stronger than before. The track sent him to a secret underground sewer where Dr. Connors had been conducting all of his experiments. It's revealed in a scene with Connors that he didn't want Peter, his son, or his family to find out about what he'd become because he was ashamed. But he was still determined to perfect the serum, so kept adding to it. However, every time he became the lizard, he would become stronger, faster, and would mutate for longer, almost like his body was getting used to the lizard DNA being in his system and evolving him. If he took it enough, he could become the lizard forever. They track him down and try to stop him, but Connors injects himself again and says he will not have his only chance of raising his son properly taken away from him. He transforms and fights Cat and Spider-Man. Black Cat is severely injured in the fight, leaving just Spider-Man versus the lizard. This is the final showdown. The lizard tears up Spider-Man's costume to the point where his mask comes off. Peter finds a way to beat up the lizard, however, by using chemicals in Connor's lab to cause a combustion reaction, putting it all up in flames. In the heat of it, the lizard transforms back to Connors, and Peter gets him and Felicia out of there before they all burn alive. Connors sees Peter's face, and them two, student to teacher, friend to friend at this point, have a moment. Peter makes Connors see the error of his ways, just as Aunt May did to Peter earlier in the movie. This is similar to what happened in Spider-Man 2, where Aunt May had a talk with Peter and passed the wisdom on to Doc Ock in the final. Connors doesn't go to prison, however, he goes to a mental institution to get help. Felicia and Peter share a moment at the end of the movie where they tell each other that they trust each other and that they're both sorry for what happened. The city now trusts Spider-Man again, as he and Black Cat save the city from the lizard. For the last two movies, Spider-Man 3 and 4, there wasn't a final swing sequence because their movies didn't really end off on a high note. However, in this movie, Felicia and Peter will be having a scene where they're just talking, some police sirens can be heard in the background, and Felicia will jokingly say something along the lines of, "You can have this one." Peter will throw on the Spider-Man costume and have a final swing representing the arc. The swing will be thrilled by an epic score in the background. The color gradient will be light and bright, the camera movements will be quick and agile, and it will be daytime in the glazing summer afternoon of New York City. The complete polar opposite to the start of the movie, to represent Peter Parker's journey and redemption. And that is Spider-Man 5. However, we're not done yet. There is a post-credit scene of Kurt Connors in the mental institution. He has a conversation with a man, average height, but childish demeanor. He says that he's killed his entire family, and that he lusts for blood. He laughs. And that's the end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed Spider-Man 5, I certainly had a blast making it. Hopefully you all enjoyed my story, and yes, Spider-Man 6 is coming soon, and 6 will be the last part to the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man franchise, and the third installment in my trilogy for this character. Anyway, I said at the start of the video that I'd let you guys see part 2 for the Spider-Verse saga, and here it is. On screen right now is part 2 to my Spider-Verse series. Up first is the Spectacular Spider-Girl, which will be a continuation and the final installment in my Spectacular Universe continuation, which started all the way back in the Spectacular Spider-Man Season 3 video almost 2 years ago. So this will be a pretty emotional episode to see this story finally get wrapped up, as we know Mayday was born at the end of the Ultimate Spider-Man series. Next, we are getting a What If Venom was in the Amazing Universe. I introduced Tom Hardy Venom in The Amazing Spider-Man 3, so this will be a variation of that Venom movie if it happened, continuing from my Amazing Spider-Man 3. Then we get the continuation to this story with Spider-Man 6, the finale of this series. Then will come the 2 final installments in the Andrew Garfield Amazing series in The Amazing Spider-Man 4, and then the Sinister Six Face-Off, which will act as an event film, sort of, kind of like the Avengers, where Spider-Man will face off against the Sinister Six. Thanks for watching, hopefully you all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.